Hey everybody, it's Marshall Monkey here, and this is going to be my The Mandalorian Season 2 review. So I'm going to split my Season 2 review into 3 separate parts. So first is my Season 2 review without the finale, which is this video. Then I'll do a finale review because there's so much I want to talk about from that episode. I'll do a separate video for it. And then the third video will be what I think they should do for Season 3 and where I think they're going for Season 3. So 3 different videos. So this is the Season 2 review without the finale, but there are still spoilers for the rest of the season, so I'm warning you now. So I'm going to separate this video into 3 different categories. The first one's good, like what I liked about this season, the good things. The bad column, which is what I didn't like about this season in certain storylines. And then the shaky column, things I think could have been different, things that could have been, we could have had more of, or things we could have had less of, change this, move around that, things like that, things that could have been different, that I think, if tweaked a little bit, could have been perfect, right? Or even worse, I don't know, we'll see. But those are the 3 different columns. So let's get started with this review. So I thought I should start this review off with the good section. What's good about this season? What do I like about this season? So I thought I'd start out on a good note. Well, let's talk about Pedro Pascal first. Pedro is actually in every section, interestingly enough. The only one who made it in all 3. So let's talk about him. Pedro Pascal continues to be the starring, the great starring actor of this show. He's just doing so well. I love his performance as Mando. I'm rooting for Pedro Pascal, and I think a lot of people are going to meet him and his acting ability through this show if they haven't already. He's just so good as the character, and I think, I have this personal list of mine, and a lot of people have the same list of actors who just are their roles. Like, for example, Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man. Ryan Reynolds is Deadpool. Gal Gadot is Wonder Woman. Pedro Pascal is Din Djarin. Even to some degree, Gina Carano just is Cara Dune, meaning they're irreplaceable in a sense. You can't see anybody else playing them. But the difference with these 2, characters, specifically Pedro Pascal, to those other actors, is that those other actors are playing characters that have already pre-existed, that they're just doing their adaptation of it. Whereas this is an original character. Pedro Pascal's playing an original character, and so it's even more impressive. So that's pretty cool. So again, he just continues to do so well, and he really does make the show, even though he was totally sidelined this season. We'll talk about that later in the review, but I really did come to enjoy Pedro Pascal's performance here. Then next up, the core supporting characters. So I'm not talking about the cameos. We'll talk about that a little later on in the review. But I'm talking about the core supporting characters. So Gina Carano's Cara Dune, Carl Weathers, Giancarlo Esposito, all of the actors this season did so well out of those 3 core supporting characters. Way better than the first season. Carl Weathers didn't get a lot of screen time, though. He was only in 1 episode. He directed it, so I guess that's fine. But I would have liked to see him a little more of this season, just because he was so great in the first one. Then the action sequences were really good. I loved the Razor Crest action sequences. Those were particularly really good. And then anything that involved a lightsaber was just amazing. I mean, the finale too. So, I wasn't going to talk about it in this video because it's the finale. I'm making a separate video for it. But I'll just say it was so good. It was excellent. But the Ahsoka scenes too. Anything with the lightsaber and the dark saber, all so good. So it's just excellent. And the blasters, right? The blaster fights were really good. Bo-Katan, all the fight scenes from everybody. It was just really good. And then the last thing on my good list was the love for Star Wars. Even though I had a lot of problems with this season, I do feel that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni come from a place that has a lot of love for Star Wars, just like Kevin Feige does with Marvel, and it translates into his work, and it does here too for those 2. For Favreau and Filoni, I truly do think that their love for Star Wars is fueling the brand right now, and I think that it's translating into their work because there's still a lot of stuff I loved about this season, as I just mentioned, and so I really do appreciate that. I think that's what Kathleen Kennedy lacks, and so I like that they're kind of picking up that slack. All right, so that was the good section. Now on to the bad section. It has a lot more in it, and we're going to talk a lot more about the bad section, unfortunately. Pedro Pascal. So a lot of you have heard the rumors that Pedro Pascal doesn't want to wear the helmet all the time. He doesn't want to wear Mando's helmet constantly. He wants to have scenes with it off. which led to him getting sidelined at the finale. That's what people are speculating. And, there's just been a lot of behind-the-scenes drama. There's a lot of rumors about it, videos, blog posts, all that kind of stuff. I do believe that the rumors are true, and I think the finale was what pushed me to that conclusion, which we'll talk about, in that finale video. I don't want to talk too much about the finale here, because they're two separate videos that I'm making. But, I don't know, I just feel like the finale confirmed it for me, that's what I believe. Now, I know a lot of people do not believe it, and I know a lot of people, Star Wars fans are very toxic. I think Marvel fans get that way too. Disney fans do that. And, not all of them, of course, but like a camp of them do. And I think that for a brand that's already so divided, I think it's interesting that, The Mandalorian, even when it's trying to appeal to everyone, is still divisive in a way. But I think it's the rumors too. But I guess we'll never know if the rumors are true, but again, we can speculate. Well, I guess in time we'll know, when The Mandalorian continues. But again, I'm going to talk all about that in my Season 2 video. And again, I'm making a Season 3 video about what to expect, what I think will happen. And no one can for sure right now say that the rumors are true, but I think if they are, that's the reason why I had to put Pedro in the bad section. I just think I believe it. And so we'll see what ends up happening there. Next on the bad section is Gina Carano and, as Cara Dune. I think, again, this is another thing where it's like the controversy. Although this one's confirmed. We know about this. So Gina Carano, I think her political opinion gets in the way of the show. And many times when I was watching her scenes, even in the finale, I was like just thinking about Gina Carano's backlash. And I think that's become a problem. I think that's a problem because not because of her opinion, as it is, because everyone's entitled to that, but I think it's because it's drawing so much negative headlines to the show that it becomes a problem. And that's the only reason why I'd be like, don't do that, Gina Carano. I think Disney has done that because I think that the Rangers of New Republic show is about her, as many other people are speculating. So I just think that's, I'm sure they were like, Gina, you got to rein it in. But also, Cara Dune, as she took the stance in the New Republic, I didn't like how in the Mayfeld episode, she was like, we're going to break all the rules for the child. And I'm like, you just got here. Like, it's been 5 minutes and you're already doing this. And that's a recurring theme, I think, with Star Wars characters, is that they, that are supposed to be the good guys or whatever, that they always end up breaking the rules for the greater good. And it's like, no wonder you guys always lose to these, to like the Empire, the First Order. Is like you keep, there's no consequence for it when you do that kind of stuff. But that's just my opinion. But that was like the only big nitpick I had with Cara Dune. But I had to just put it in the bad section here, along with Gina Carano's personal, opinions and stuff affecting the show. Next, the length of the episodes. I just don't like how short these episodes are. They're too short to me. I think 45 minutes should be the minimum, because sometimes some of the episodes were like 30 minutes, and I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a second as well, and how I factored that. But I just think they're too short. I don't know. I think the show is juggling a lot this season, and I think that having longer episodes would have helped flesh out a lot of these storylines and cameos that we got this season. So I just felt that it just wasn't doing it for me, the episode length. Some of it was okay, and they ended up getting done what they needed to do in these episodes in the amount of time they had, but I just think it should have been longer. It's like, what I love so much about Netflix, for example, Stranger Things, it's like an 8-hour movie, and it doesn't feel as episodic. And I think that's what I would love in a streaming service, is that these feel like cinematic, these feel like films, but longer, and you can spend more time on them. And they are supposed to look just as good with the budgets they have. So the length of the episodes was just too short for me. Then next, the writing. The writing was ridiculous this season. I was like, what is going on here? First of all, I think the biggest complaint I had was with, again, Mando's helmet. I just think that I'm on Pedro Pascal's side if it is true. I think he should get a couple more scenes with his helmet off, because it's just weird seeing, the reason why it's weird is because in season 1, when he was like, I don't take my helmet off, I was like, that's cool. But in season 2, they contradict themselves in the writing so much, because it's like so many characters this season were talking about how Mando shouldn't wear his helmet all the time, and it's, that it's wrong or that it's pointless. And it's like, it's fine that Mando believes the opposite because that's part of his character, but then it really does make you think, wow, it isn't practical to wear that thing all the time. Even Bill Burr's character, Mayfeld, he was like, everybody is the same, we're all the same. We're all coexisting here. And when people get desperate, they stop believing in what they have believed previously. And he was right, because Mando took off his helmet in that episode because he needed to find the coordinates from Moff Gideon to get Baby Yoda back. So I agree with him there. And then Bo-Katan, she was like, your religion's wrong. And she's an actual Mandalorian, and she can take her helmet off. And I was like, I understand why Mando's like, I don't believe that, because, again, it's a part of his character. But the writing making, you run that through your head, it doesn't seem practical when he has his helmet on all the time. It's like, wow, this is kind of weird. Especially when, everybody was in Boba Fett's ship in one episode. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was the one before the finale. And they were all in Boba Fett's ship, and everybody was like, no helmets, no, Fennec didn't have her little mask thing on. And then Mando's just there with his helmet. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. It's just so weird. Again, and then he takes it off in front of everybody in the finale. So I was like, this is stupid. It's just contradicted itself too much. Stuff like that just really made me upset about this season. But that was like my biggest thing with the writing. I mean, there's other stuff, but I don't want to go on too long about it. But I will say, the last part of this section is that there's too many cameos this season. Like, way too many. I think if you're going to have this many cameos, you need those episodes to be longer, because it flushes out that storyline. Because Mando was so sidelined this season, almost like fading into the background too much, because of how many cameos they are. And I get it. It works in the plot. Ahsoka, Bo-Katan, all of these work within the plot. And it works through the writing. That part does work. But it's to set up all these spin-offs and sequel shows and whatnot. And again, it just makes Mando fade too much to the background. And I don't like it. It takes a lot of the originality out of the show that we previously had with all the original characters. Like, Mando, Cara Dune, Carl Weathers' all these other characters. It takes from that. And I feel like, they talk about how the galaxy is so big all the time, but it's like, is it really? Because all these characters are bumping into each other. And it's weird because it sacrifices Mando's own story and its originality. And I don't like that. So, too many cameos. I think either you make the episodes longer to flush it out, or you just don't have that many. They were cool cameos. We'll talk about that in the shaky section. They were great. But I just feel like, there's a price to pay when you do that, and that's Mando's originality. Now for the shaky category. So this is stuff that I would have changed. It was okay, but I would have changed. So Pedro Pascal shows up here again. Mando shows back up here. Mando, I think, in the finale, again, I'm not going to talk too much about the finale, but in the finale, towards the end, you really start to think, wow, where is Mando's story going now? Because I think for so long we've seen his dynamic with Grogu, and that's the main focus of the show, that I forgot he was even a bounty hunter in the first place. I was like, oh yeah, he's a cool, he's a well-established, famous bounty hunter. So it's like, Mando, I think that part of the show, again, the originality was lost. And so I would have maybe changed that a bit. I don't know. Is it too dependent on Grogu? Is the show getting too dependent on him? I know some people think it is, but some people are like, I don't care. But I don't know. It makes me think after watching the finale and watching the season as a whole, and the cameos and the storylines. It really makes you think about that. And next up, Grogu. Grogu, I had a problem with. First of all, if he's been trained at the Jedi Temple, right, like they said in Ahsoka's episode, why did he eat unborn children? That was like, it bothered me before in the first place, because I thought it was just gross to include it. But now knowing that he's had Jedi training at the temple, I'm like, and he still ate unborn children? That's messed up. Like, that's wrong. So I don't know why that was even in here. Because did anybody think, oh wow, that is weird? Because Jon Favreau, well, Dave Filoni wrote the Ahsoka episode, but Jon Favreau wrote most of the other ones, I think, or at least either all of the other episodes or like most of them. So I was like, Jon Favreau, you should read Dave's script and realize that that's super wrong. I just had a problem with that. But also what I have a problem with is that Grogu's story becomes larger than life. And I feel like Grogu, where we left off with Grogu in the finale, and in context of, where the Disney trilogy, the recent trilogy is going, what we know about Luke's school, and then also in the comics it's there too, and they've retconned some of that. And then also, where is Grogu in the sequel trilogy? What, are they going to explain that? Are they leaving it off here? What's the story? We'll talk about the overall story in a minute. But with Grogu, I'm just like, is he larger than life? Is he, with including him into the story of the recent trilogy is that putting too much weight on the shoulders of the show, and I think it kind of did towards the end. So that was my problem with Grogu too. But I still love Grogu. That's why he's in the shaky category and not in any of the others. So we'll see what they end up doing with his story. It's interesting. Then including the cameos is in the shaky section. I loved the cameos. I think my favorite would have to be Ahsoka. I just loved that episode so much, just because of the vibe that it gave off. I loved the Kill Bill influence. And so I think the cameos are good. And again, they make sense within the plot. I just think that the problem was it just took away from Mando's story too much to me. Or Mando's, his presence. He is the Mandalorian. That's the name of the show. So it was weird to see that I think it overwhelmed me at times too. I was like, man, again, it just didn't feel like I was watching The Mandalorian. But again, I do like the cameos in general, and I think I like the idea of bringing in different influences and characters, so I was going to put the cameos in the shaky section as well. And then, of course, the overall story. I liked the story that, of course we knew that, from season 1 that they were going to do in season 2 that they needed to find Grogu's home. We already knew that was the overall story. So I do understand that, and I do like it, and I think that this season was not all that bad because of it. But again, I just feel like the show lost what made it so special, and I think that making it become a larger piece in the Star Wars puzzle, again, makes the galaxy seem too small. So I don't know. I think the overall story needs a little bit of fine tuning to me, and I think it will get it because of where we left off in the finale with Din Djarin. So I'm hoping that gets resolved. But that's my season 2 review of The Mandalorian. I think that overall it was good, but as you can see, there's just a lot of problems that I had with it. And not everybody agrees with me. I think a lot of my opinions are very unpopular. But what did you guys think? Comment down below. I'm curious to see what you guys think of, this season. Do you have your own categories of good, bad, and shaky? I'd like to see that too. And I'm making my finale review, and then of course my season 3 what to expect and what I want video. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.